so much content out there that I'm trying to catch up. I'm actually watching Rooster right now with Steve Carell on HBO Max, which is pretty good. It's not great or anything, but he's such a pro. It's enjoyable to watch him.
I never get tired of The Office when he was on there. That show was him, man. You know, when I'm tooling through YouTube TV watching old episodes of The Office, you can tell the ones that don't have Carell. I mean, immediately. Even though his presence, but you can tell it's not Carell because nothing happened afterwards. Carell was the show.
Yeah, the show some shows run their course, and when you lose a character, it's almost impossible to fill that slot. So it's just
absolutely. Touching and beautiful Western series overtakes Yellowstone as it shatters ratings records amid a string of rave reviews and fantastic performances. And it is called The Madison. Created and written by Taylor Sheridan, premiered on Paramount Plus March 14th. New York family's life unravels after a tragedy as they process grief while vacationing in rural Montana. Has Michelle Pfeiffer, Kurt Russell, who's just one of the greatest actors ever. I've been following it since the computer who wore tennis shoes. Have you heard anything about The Madison?
I've been hearing good things about it. I haven't caught up with it, but it's just amazing to me that Taylor Sheridan works and just keeps cranking out these hit shows. Yeah. I didn't just mention that most of it is based on his imagination, and a lot of the stuff is set in Montana or Texas, places where you don't often see TV shows set. He's just telling different kinds of stories and connecting with a different unserved part of the audience, and he's good. I mean, I almost wish he were making movies that he's done in the past, but the focus is really on TV these days. But it's just great actors, unusual stories. I want you to watch Land Man. It humanizes the oil and gas industry and shows that even if you don't like this or that, this is what makes the world run. And these are the people who make it run, and it's fascinating.
Billy Bob Thornton is also just freaking brilliant. I've seen I watch clips of it all the time because they show up on viral. Louis C.K., I'm not a big fan. He's a creep. There are a lot of people I would like who got canceled from cancel culture, particularly comedians. Louis C.K. wasn't about his material on stage; it was behavior off stage. But Netflix has decided to give him another shot.
Yeah, he's been canceled for a while. He's basically been an independent entrepreneur. He has a whole email list. He reaches out to his fans, and he sells out places across the country. Hollywood turned his back on him when he had that. He admitted that he did something really untoward towards several women. That was sexual harassment, pure and simple. And for those who don't like him, think he's creepy, I think he's kind of creepy myself. But, at the end of the day, he is a comedian. He's not running for office. And if there's an audience out there to see him, I think he should go out there and go get that audience. And that's what's happening.
I don't know. Some of his stand-up is very funny. His early stuff I used to really like. There's a lot of good comedy out there. Shane Gillis, Nate Bargatze is freaking phenomenal. I mean, you know what? This is what I love about comedy. Because you don't have big flashbangs and all of this. You don't have a big light show. Just a guy or a woman walking out with a mic. I have the greatest respect for stand-up comedians that they can fill, stadiums to hear their musings and Bargatze is just so, his stuff is just brilliant.
It is. It's clean as a whistle. He's got a movie coming out, I think, in a month or two called The
Really?
A little bit like that. A Mr. Mom, actually. And it talks to them, obviously. But yeah, I agree. I mean, to go on stage, to captivate an audience for an hour plus, to do it all by yourself, no bells, no whistles, just your wit, your humor, your delivery, your sense of timing. I can't imagine a tougher job. And we're living in a golden age of media. There's so many different out there.
Yeah, they're also basically philosophers as well. I always talk about do you know any quotes? Do you know any quotes from Voltaire? Do you know any quotes from whoever? But you can quote George Carlin. Right? You can, dude, right? You know the words you can't say, all that. You know the routines. Come on, man. Chris and Toto, I thank you for being with us today, and I wish you a very great Easter. Where can people find your video podcast?
Well, YouTube is just punch in Hollywood, Toto. You have my name, and that's so everybody.
Yeah, and it's so funny that I am not in Kansas anymore. I lived in Kansas for 10 years, and you're my Hollywood guy. All right, Kristen, God bless you. Have a glorious weekend, man. Let's take a break and come back. This is the Rob Carson Show. ounces of gold would be worth about $165,000. Smart Americans diversify a portion of their savings into precious metals. That's why you need to consider buying gold from my friends at Birch Gold. For thousands of years, gold has been a store of wealth, and today it's a crucial part of any balanced strategy. Even better, Birch Gold can help you convert an existing IRA or 401k into a tax-sheltered retirement account in gold. Just text my name, Rob, to the number 989898 to receive free information on gold. There's no obligation, just useful information. Tens of thousands of happy customers, including me. Let Birch Gold help you diversify with gold. Now that's peace of mind. Text Rob to 989898. Again, text my name, Rob, to 989898 for Birch Gold.
Looking for a fun, family-friendly day out? The Pennsylvania Dutch Market in Cockeysville, your one-stop destination for authentic Amish food. Friendly faces and over 20 stalls filled with handcrafted goods. Enjoy fresh flowers, fruits, veggies, and the best seafood and meats around. The sweet treats make fresh daily. The smell will draw you in, and the experience will keep you coming back. Open Thursday and Friday 9 to 6 and Saturday 8 to 4. The Pennsylvania Dutch Market. So much to see, smell, and savor. The Sean Hannity Show.
Hunter applied on a gun application form. Wesley Snipes, convicted 3 counts of tax evasion in 2008, bilking Uncle Sam on taxes up to $15 million. The IRS said he owed taxes. He was later sentenced to 3 years in prison. Another guy, Jersey Shore star Mike. And anyway, 8-month sentence for skirting $2.3 million in taxes. Not Hunter.
Sean Hannity. Weekdays 3 to 6 on Talk Radio 680 WCBM.
Come on.
And Director of Player Personnel.
Big head top, still around, man.
Marketed for decades as safe, but long-term use of this injectable contraceptive has now been linked to serious risk. Studies show that women who use Depo-Provera may face a much higher chance of developing dangerous brain tumors. And
Enjoy enhanced product features like dark mode 2. Right now, and W245 CJ Wilmington on Draper Media Station.
It's mere speculation on my part, but could it be that the evil one, the devil, wanted to make these guys feel good about their decision to crucify Christ? Certainly Pilate had.
World Cafe. I also want to give a big shout out to the whole team who make World Cafe happen. Chris Williams is our technical director. Our programming and booking coordinator is Chelsea Johnson. Our line producer is Will Loftus. Our producer is Miguel Perez. George Murphy is in charge of video. Our digital director is Alex Kime. Bruce Warren is our executive producer. Kaleo is our contributing host. We produce this show at WXPN at the University of Pennsylvania in Philadelphia. My name is Raina Duras. Thanks for listening to World Cafe from NPR.
Lisa Brady, Fox News. That has triggered. Sources telling Fox one pilot has been rescued. The search continues for the other. The U.S. military not confirming anything yet.
There's a reason that we have not heard from CENTCOM and that we have not heard anything more from the White House because they don't want to do anything to give away any details that might be used by the Iranians right now. The Iranians have put out a reward for capturing this pilot.
WKRP to what will be a real-life radio station in Cincinnati.
The American forces were put to rescue the U.S. first crew member of the F-15E fighter jet. The concerns are mounting with no word yet on the fate of the second.
But my heart hurt when I heard that. Yes, because typically when you eject, it is a very coordinated, you are both going out at the same time. Especially in a plane.
Absolute geniuses.
ABC's Great Planet in Jerusalem. The White House, meanwhile, continuing to face questions about the length and
Manufacturing jobs are added. Healthcare.
You're listening to the man who made falling upwards an art form. It's crazy. This is Stu Gox and Company live.
877-99 on Fox. We are pushing the phone number. What we do around here. We established the rules yesterday.
Literally. That means I don't carry helium. Now when it comes to serious heartburn, I don't mess around with it. Rolaids, dual-active cortisone and magnesium hydroxide for any heartburn fast. Yeah, that's right. Two actives with a strong relief. And the best part, the roll fits right here in my pocket, so I can get...
Let's go.
Somebody would... Those who filed the lawsuit used the wrong measurements and methods to come up with the calorie count. There's been no official reason. And I'm Dan Schwartzman in the Bloomberg Newsroom. Here's some of the stories we're watching. U.S. job growth rebounded in March while the unemployment rate unexpectedly fell while there were advances in payrolls. Bloomberg's Mike McKee takes a look at the numbers.
Overall, 178,000 jobs created and an unemployment rate of 4.3%. So good news on the labor front. And it does give the Fed the opportunity to continue watching inflation.
The data also suggests the labor market was stabilizing as the Iran war started. Stephanie Roth is with Wolf Research.
It is a stunning number, and last month it was stunning in the opposite direction. I think we have to appreciate that there has been a tremendous amount of volatility. Some of it, of course, has to do with the strikers coming back, but even when you smooth through the data, we're probably in an environment where the trend in payrolls is somewhere between 50 and 70,000. The unemployment rate will probably bounce around between 4.3 and 4.5, and it's an economy where the labor market is largely stable. It's not picking up significantly this month, and after having significantly weakened last month, it's probably just an environment that's stable with a lot of volatility.
That's economist Stephanie Roth on Bloomberg Surveillance. Roth says healthcare strikes and severe winter weather contributed to employment declines in February. SpaceX boosted its target IPO valuation above $2 trillion as it gears up to pitch its initial public offering. That would increase the company's valuation by about 2/3 in just a matter of months and would make SpaceX more valuable than all but 5 of the companies in the S&P 500. A listing for SpaceX would raise as much as $75 billion. The company is meeting with prospective investors in the coming weeks, but aims to go public in June. Amazon says it will begin charging a 3.5% fuel charge later this month as more shipping companies raise their prices to offset higher fuel costs. The e-commerce giant says it has absorbed increases so far, similar to other major carriers. The fee will apply to the sum Amazon charges to ship an item, not the product's sale price. The fees take effect on April 17th for customers of the company's Fulfillment by Amazon service. Meanwhile, the U.S. Postal Service last week saying it would increase prices by 8% on some packages. We check markets all day long here at Bloomberg. Both U.S. and European markets all closed for Good Friday. But in Asia, the Nikkei in Japan gaining 1.3% today. The Hang Seng in Hong Kong fell 0.7%, while China's CSI 300 was down about 0.8%. Global news 24 hours a day and whenever you want it with Bloomberg News Now. I'm Dan Schwartzman, and this is Bloomberg.
At Fisher Investments, we may seem like other money managers, but we're different.
Are you really that different than the rest of us?
We are. As a fiduciary, we always focus on what's best for our clients.
What services do you offer besides investing?
We have a team of specialists in financial planning, estate planning, and more.
Your clients rely on you for all that?
Yes, we ensure clients receive unparalleled service at every step of the relationship.
Okay, but you still sell commission-based products, right?
No, because we believe that's a conflict of interest. We prioritize service over sales goals.
So, then how do your fees work?
We have a simple and transparent fee that's a percentage of our clients' portfolios. So we do better when our clients do better.
Wow, we're more different than I thought.
At Fisher Investments, we're clearly different. Learn more at FisherInvestments.com. Investing in securities involves the risk of loss.
Now, your 3-day weather forecast on Bloomberg 99.1.
Afternoon sunshine should lead to temperatures reaching 80 to 85 here in the district in Baltimore. It'll be breezy as well. We're partly cloudy tonight. We may have a stray shower. Overnight lows 65 to 70. Sun tomorrow near 85. There may be a shower late in the day. Partly cloudy, chance for shower tomorrow night 65. Rain Sunday with highs between 70 and 75. I'm Rob Carrollton with your 3-day forecast on Bloomberg 99.1.
This is Masters in Business with Barry Ritholtz on Bloomberg Radio.
I'm Barry Ritholtz. You're listening to Masters in Business on Bloomberg Radio. My extra special guest this week is Hillary Allen. She is a professor at the American University Washington College of Law in D.C., where she specializes in financial regulation, banking law, securities regulation, and technology law. She published a book, FinTech Dystopia, a summer beach read about how Silicon Valley is ruining things, covering the intersection of finance, technology, law, regulation, and politics. It's a perfect subject for us to talk about. Hillary Allen, welcome to Bloomberg.
Thank you so much for having me.
So, fascinating conversation, fascinating topic that you write about. Before we jump into that, let's spend a few minutes going over your background. You get a bachelor's in laws from the University of Sydney in Australia, a master of laws in securities and financial regulation law from Georgetown here in the States, and you graduated first in your class there. What was the original career plan? Was it simply, I'm going to go be a lawyer? What were you thinking?
The original career plan was, I'm just going to be a lawyer. And then I loved law school, and I practiced for 7 years and discovered there wasn't so much law always in the practice of law. And I'm a nerd, and I missed it. And so the drive was to go back to Georgetown, get my master's, do some academic writing, and then launch a career as a professor where I could really sort of think slowly about the law.
And you practiced, you were in London, you were in Sydney, Shearman and Sterling here in New York. Tell us a little bit about the sort of legal work you were doing when you were a practicing attorney.
So basically, there's sort of two broad categories of the work I did. I did transactional work, banking transactional, typically acting for banks in leverage buyouts. But the work I think I enjoyed more was the regulatory compliance advisory. So there was more law in that, especially when you had new financial laws being handed down in Australia and changes in the US with Dodd-Frank and sort of trying to figure out how to comply with those new rules.
So how do you go from practicing bank transactions and some regulatory law to ultimately working with the Financial Crisis Inquiry Commission? Tell us a little bit about your experiences there.
So that was a series of fortunate events. While I was doing my master's at Georgetown, I had a professor who was tapped to be on the staff of the Financial Crisis Inquiry Commission, and he pulled me in to work with them 2 days a week, and we were investigating the causes of the 2008 financial crisis to put together the report that came out, which really was sort of
a nice thick book that they published.
It's a really thick book with a really thick index even. And the idea was to tell the story, and that's really sort of stuck with me throughout my career, the importance of being able to explain complex things and how they knit together to cause things.
So, working with the FCIC, how did that affect how you looked at regulation in general, but more specifically, the government's response to technology, new financial products, the regulatory world in general?
So the gift that I got from working with the Financial Crisis Inquiry Commission is sort of understanding that there are a lot of things that come together and you need to really look very broadly to understand systemic changes. Another gift that it gave me was, I think, a healthy skepticism of innovation rhetoric, right? Because if you think back to 2008, what caused it, there was all these stories about, well, these new financial products, these complex new derivatives, we don't need to regulate them. They're innovations, sophisticated parties involved. We don't want to tap down on innovative potential. And so that skepticism has been a helpful skill set as I've been navigating the sort of post-2008 financial world where you have the innovation rhetoric from Silicon Valley infiltrating into financial services.
You raise a really interesting issue that I have to ask about. So how much of what we see as regulation is either an adherence to an ideology that sometimes says regulation is good and there are guardrails in capitalism, and other ideology says regulation is expensive and anti-innovative and reduces job creation? It seems like regardless of the facts on the ground, each side has their belief system. How do you contextualize that?
Well, I don't think there were too many people in the depths of the 2008 crisis who were saying there's too much regulation, right? I think it's a function of where you are at a particular time. I think people's memories fade really quickly. Mm-hmm. And as soon as regulation has solved the problems it was intended to solve, or the crisis that spurred the regulation has dissipated, people quickly forget why that regulation is there in place, and then it becomes much easier to see it as something that is just a hindrance, something that is just expensive, that doesn't have a role to play. But I think what we're actually seeing right at this moment is the erosion of the securities laws that really have stood investors in good stead since the 1930s. Not to say they're perfect, but the general sort of investor protection regime that the Securities and Exchange Commission has always implemented has really encouraged trust in the U.S. Stock market and sort of made it the envy of the world, and people wanted to list here. That's really getting peeled back right now, and so I think, it'll be pretty soon a moment where we realize why we had all that regulation and we'll miss it.
So heading into the financial crisis, I recall looking at some of what I call radical deregulation prior, and this isn't by no means the sole cause of the financial crisis. Lots of factors led to this, but you had the Commodities Futures Modernization Act, which allowed what was essentially an insurance product to be issued without any insurance reserves. It was kind of risky. And then you had the repeal of Glass-Steagall that kept depository banks separate from speculative Wall Street banks. It probably didn't cause the crisis, but certainly allowed it to get much bigger, at the very least. And yet, there didn't seem to be any desire after the crisis. Hey, maybe we should put these things back into place. Maybe we should repeal what was added and restore what was repealed. They want to go a totally different direction.
Well, I think, again, this is a story of political economy, and there are still a lot of people who are mad at the Obama administration for prioritizing health care over financial reform. Mm-hmm. Because basically they had one shot at doing something big, and if they had, and I'm not weighing in to say that this was the right or the wrong move, but if they had gone right out of the gates with financial reform, I think we would have seen more of the bigger structural things that you're talking about. So, in that immediate aftermath of the 2008 crisis, you had Sandy Weil, who had been the head of Citigroup and had sort of engineered the end of the Glass-Steagall legislation, and from, this is maybe apocryphal, but apparently he had a deal toy that said shatterer of Glass-Steagall that he kept on his desk. And again, this may be apocryphal, but I heard that he basically sort of had a conversion after 2008, said, ooh, yeah, probably shouldn't have done that.
Well, a lot of people did. Alan Greenspan famously said, I incorrectly assumed people's concern over their own reputation would have prevented some of the excesses we've seen. I'm paraphrasing, but that was pretty close to what he said.
Yeah, he said the world sort of didn't work the way I thought it did. And I think, had they gone straight out of the gates with financial reform, you might have seen some of that structural reform. But by the time they got around to it, Dodd-Frank wasn't passed to 2010, right. Then the political economy calculus had shifted. The industry was in more of a position to sort of argue for weaker rules and fewer structural changes.
It's amazing how rapidly memories fade and people just quickly, oh no, that was then, now it's new. You've worked inside the global financial system as well as studying it from the outside. How did being part of the FCIC affect how you perceive technology, new financial products, regulation, and deregulation? How did that affect your perspective?
I didn't think a ton about technology at that time. That's sort of been a later addition to the work that I do, but the broader themes of financial innovation, regulation, deregulation, I see the value in financial stability regulation in particular. So financial stability regulation are the rules that are supposed to prevent financial crises, and they work often sort of hand in hand with investor protection regulations, but they also aim to do something differently. And part of the challenge when you're trying to prevent a financial crisis is this silo mentality, where people just think about their own little piece of the world, and okay, we can deregulate our little piece, and we won't think about the flow-on consequences and what incentives it'll create, etc. And so, my real takeaway was always to have the most holistic perspective possible to break down that silo mentality. And later in my career, that meant learning about the new technologies that are sort of infiltrating the financial system.
So I want to talk about technology, and I want to talk about fintech dystopia.
That's fucking right.
There is a quote from within that applies directly to what you're describing with stability, which was, it's the economic precarity, stupid. Paraphrasing James Carville. Tell us a little bit about the economic precarity.
Yeah. So I think a mistake that we have made collectively in recent years is to say, well, look, the economy's doing well, everything's fine. And that really doesn't, mesh with many people's experience of the economy. So it used to be, well, probably not always the case, but closer to the case in the Clinton years, where there was less economic inequality than there is now, that you could sort of say a rising tide lifts all boats. But now what we're seeing is over half of Americans live from paycheck to paycheck, even in a good economy, right? And so in that kind of circumstance, financial systems in the economy aren't working for everybody. And so I think when we think about what we're trying to achieve with our financial system, it should be that we are trying to find a solution to this economic precarity. And also, that begs the question of whether the financial system and investing is in actually the way to get there. And maybe we need broader public policies to address that economic precarity so that no one, or at least not half of the population, are just scraping by.
Coming up, we continue our conversation with Professor Hillary Allen, discussing her new book, FinTech Dystopia, a summer beach read about Silicon Valley and how it's ruining things. I'm Barry Ritholtz. You're listening to Masters in Business on Bloomberg Radio.
Now, your 3-day weather forecast on Bloomberg 99.1.
Sunshine this afternoon, and it should be warm, 80 to 85. It's also going to be a bit breezy. Tonight, we're partly cloudy, 65 to 70. There's the chance of an isolated shower overnight. Sunshine, highs near 85 tomorrow, maybe a shower late in the day. Partly cloudy with a chance of a shower tomorrow night, breezy 65. Rain Sunday, highs Easter, 70 to 75. I'm Rob Carolyn with your 3-day forecast on Bloomberg 99.1. And I'm Dan Schwartzman in the Bloomberg Newsroom. Here's some of the stories we're watching. Iran is down to US F-15E fighter jet with one of the 2 crew members rescued. A search and rescue mission is ongoing for the second crew member, whose fate is currently unknown. The incident would mark a significant escalation in the now 5-week war in Iran. President Trump has threatened to go after Iran's infrastructure by destroying bridges and electric power plants as the U.S. bombed Iran's tallest bridge. Trump says the U.S. military hasn't even started destroying what's left in Iran, warning on social media overnight that Iran's leadership, quote, knows what has to be done and has to be done fast. A French container ship and a Japanese-owned tanker exiting the Strait of Hormuz in what appears to be the first known transit through the waterway by a vessel linked to Western Europe since the war in Iran started. The Islamic Republic has tightened its grip over Hormuz, allowing some ships from friendly nations to move along a pre-approved route that has threatened to strike vessels allied to the U.S. or Israel. Artemis 2 has officially left Earth's orbit. Astrophysicist Hakeem Olosei says its crew is heading toward the moon now, where the spacecraft will do a lunar flyby over the next few days.
Everything should be okay here. This isn't one of the most high-risk parts of the mission, like takeoff and re-entry. So I think that from this point forward, until they get to the moon and back, things are probably going to go pretty smoothly.
This is a test flight for NASA's grand plans for a moon base and sustained lunar living. It'll be the farthest humans have ever flown in space, breaking Apollo 13's record. The Environmental Protection Agency is now considering adding microplastics to an official list of drinking water contaminants. Dr. Stephanie Whitmer says that could lead to new regulations for water utilities.
Definitely not enough research to draw any concrete conclusions. We use plastic every day, and the amount of plastic that we've been using as human beings and just in the environment has really been increasing over time.
That's Dr. Stephanie Whitmer on ABC News. Health Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. has cited a small study that links microplastics in arterial plaque to a 4.5 times higher risk of heart attack, stroke, or death in patients with artery disease. We check markets all day long here at Bloomberg. U.S. and European markets all closed for Good Friday, but in Asia, the Nikkei in Japan gained 1.3%. Hang Seng in Hong Kong fell 0.7%, while China's CSI 300 was down about 0.8%. Global news 24 hours a day and whenever you want it with Bloomberg News Now. I'm Dan Schwartzman, and this is Bloomberg.
One question.
Here's why there isn't more fear in the fear index.
One topic.
Here's why debt is now a driving political force.
One succinct explanation.
Here's why Trump was able to demolish the White House's East Wing.
Join Stephen Carroll for Here's Why, the podcast that takes one news story and explains it in just a few minutes.
Here's why AI isn't taking your job yet.
Subscribe to Here's Why on Apple, Spotify, the Bloomberg Business app, or wherever you get your podcasts.
They told us to expect change. They warned us about the transition. But honestly, they forgot the best part. This is the chapter where we finally focus on us. LifeMD delivers expert menopause and midlife care right from your home. From hormone health to holistic wellness, LifeMD helps you feel your best for the best years of your life. LifeMD, it's just getting good. Visit lifemd.com/goodlife.
I'm Boomer Esiason. My mom died from cancer. She was only 37 years old. She didn't have life insurance, and that was devastating for my family. That's why having life insurance is so important to me. Ethos makes it fast and easy. Get a quote in seconds, apply in minutes, and get same-day coverage. You can get up to $3 million in coverage with no medical exam.
Get your free quote at ethos.com/save. That's ethos.com/save. Paid spokesperson. Time and an application may vary. Online health questions required.
You're listening to Masters in Business with Barry Ritholtz on Bloomberg Radio.
I'm Barry Ritholtz. You're listening to Masters in Business on Bloomberg Radio. My extra special guest this week is Hillary Allen. She teaches at the American University Washington College of Law in Washington, D.C., where she specializes in regulation of financial and technology laws. You talked about technological innovation. In your book, you argue that is financial technology innovation is driven largely by legal design rather than technical brilliance. Explain that a little bit. What is it about fintech that seems to be working the perspective from an attorney rather than an engineer?
Yeah, so this was something that, as I said, I came to a little later in my career. I think earlier